You thought it was over, didn't you? You assumed that the silence meant she had stopped caring, that the lack of communication meant she moved on without giving you another thought. But here's the uncomfortable truth. She never actually looked away. In fact, she's paying more attention to you now than ever before. Secretly, quietly, obsessively, but she'll never let you know it. She scrolls through your profile late at night, carefully piecing together clues about your life. She's searching for signs that you still think about her. But you're giving her nothing, no reaction, no signal, no hint of your feelings. And that's exactly why her curiosity keeps growing stronger. Because here's what most people don't realize. When someone truly believes they've lost access to you, they become obsessed with figuring out why. At first, she convinced herself she was indifferent. She told herself she was moving forward and that your silence meant nothing. But that calm indifference quickly began to crumble when she noticed something shocking. You weren't begging. You weren't trying to prove yourself. And worst of all, you weren't even trying to reach out. Suddenly she found herself wondering, why? Why aren't you reaching out? Did you find someone new? Have you completely moved on? Her imagination runs wild, and each scenario she creates in her mind becomes more painful than the last. It's ironic, isn't it? She once thought she could effortlessly forget you, but now she's the one obsessing, wondering why you're so distant. Because here's the secret that changes everything. When you stop trying to prove your worth, she's forced to reconsider her own. Each time she refreshes your profile and sees no new updates, she feels a small pang of anxiety. Each day you remain silent. Her sense of confidence and control weakens. She always believed that if she walked away, you'd still be there, quietly waiting. But you're not. Instead, you're living your life, unconcerned, indifferent, and perfectly fine without her. That's when the regret kicks in, and she starts questioning her choices, because she thought you'd chase her, plead, or at least try to reconnect. But instead you've quietly slipped out of her reach, and she has no idea how to handle that. Now she's the one obsessively checking your online status, analyzing every little detail, wondering if she's missed her chance forever. She feels the power shift, and it terrifies her. She watches quietly, hoping you'll show some small sign that you still care, that she still matters. But each day that passes without you making a move only increases her doubt. She finds herself asking questions she never imagined she'd ask. Did she underestimate your strength? Was she wrong about your feelings for her? Did she let someone irreplaceable slip through her fingers? And the more questions she asks herself, the less confident she becomes. The person who once seemed unshakable is now feeling uncertain, confused, and insecure, all because you refuse to chase her, beg, or react. By giving her nothing, you've given her everything to think about. The silent treatment isn't petty revenge. It's the most powerful thing you can do. You're forcing her to confront the consequences of her own choices, and that's something she never planned on facing. With each passing moment, you stay silent. Her anxiety deepens. She thought she was rejecting you, but the truth is far more complicated. She's now facing the harsh realization that perhaps you're the one who rejected her. Maybe she was never truly in control. Maybe you're stronger than she thought. Maybe you've already moved forward, and she's left standing in the past. That's why, despite the pain and pride holding her back, she continues watching you. because deep down, she hopes you'll give her one small signal, just enough to ease her uncertainty. But you hold steady, maintaining your strength, your self-worth, your dignity. And this is exactly what keeps her emotionally tied to you long after she thought she'd be free. Right now, you're proving something crucial. Your worth isn't dependent on her attention or validation. You've set a standard for yourself, and you're sticking to it. Nothing is more attractive or frustrating to someone who thought they had you figured out. As she continues watching, hoping and analyzing your every move, you're quietly teaching her a powerful lesson. You're not someone who can be manipulated, controlled, or easily forgotten. You're someone who respects themselves enough to walk away without looking back. She won't admit it, but secretly, this drives her absolutely crazy. Because for the first time, she understands the weight of her decisions. For the first time, she realizes how easy it was to lose you, and how hard it will be to win you back. So yes, she's watching you closely, far more closely than you think. But you'll never see it, because revealing her feelings would mean admitting defeat, admitting that she needs you more than she ever thought. Right now, her pride simply won't allow it. But as her curiosity deepens and her self-assurance fades, she's forced to confront the one question she's been avoiding. Did she lose you for good? That unanswered question is slowly tearing her apart. It's the secret battle she's fighting behind the scenes. It's not easy for her to admit, especially not to herself, but there's a war raging inside her mind. Outwardly, she pretends everything is perfect. Her smile is convincing. Her posts radiate confidence, and anyone who glances at her life from afar would assume she hasn't thought about you in weeks. But behind that polished exterior is a very different story. Every time her phone buzzes, her heart leaps slightly, only to crash back down when she sees it's not your name. She tries to mask her disappointment, but each false alarm chips away at her carefully maintained facade. Late at night, when she's alone with her thoughts, she replays conversations you've had, moments that seemed ordinary at the time, but now feel incredibly significant. The more she thinks about it, the more she wonders, did I make a mistake? But she won't dare say it out loud. Her pride is holding her hostage, refusing to let her admit, even privately, that rejecting you might have been a massive miscalculation. To admit that would mean she misjudged you, and worse, misjudged herself. And that's the bitter truth she's quietly facing right now. She even tests herself, trying to talk to new people, going out more, embracing distractions. But each encounter feels hollow, superficial, and leaves her longing for the depth she experienced with you. Every conversation feels lacking. Every potential connection falls flat. And that frustrates her deeply, because here's something she's starting to understand slowly and painfully. Finding someone who genuinely resonates with her so rare. She might have believed it was easy to replace you, that another connection would effortlessly fill the void. But reality has proven far more complicated. This realization is gnawing at her confidence, making her question not only the decision she made about you, but also the way she's approached every relationship in her life. She tries convincing herself she's just sentimental, lonely, or bored. But those excuses crumble fast. If it were only boredom, why can't she shake the thoughts of you? If it were just loneliness, why does no one else quite measure up? In moments of clarity, she's forced to face the uncomfortable possibility that maybe, just maybe, She genuinely lost something special. This inner conflict is becoming exhausting. She's trapped between her pride and her heart, stuck in limbo, not wanting to appear weak or vulnerable, yet secretly desperate for some small reassurance from you. It's a silent, invisible struggle, one she won't ever reveal openly, not even to her closest friends, because admitting it would mean confronting truths she's not ready to handle. Truths about her choices, her fears, and her vulnerabilities. Yet through all this turmoil, there's one thing she knows for certain. She hasn't stopped watching. And as long as she watches, she's indirectly keeping herself connected to you. Silently, she's acknowledging that you still hold power in her world. And deep down, she knows this is dangerous. Because the longer this goes on, the harder it becomes for her to ignore the one thought that truly scares her. Maybe she was wrong all along. Maybe you've already let her go. The moment she realizes she's no longer your priority is when it truly sinks in. When reality sets in like a heavyweight, she can no longer avoid it. The realization hits quietly but profoundly. You're no longer prioritizing her, and maybe you haven't for some time now. She notices subtle signs, little clues scattered around your life. You're no longer posting cryptic messages that hint at heartbreak. You're sharing moments of growth, ambition, and new connections. And she's painfully aware she's not a part of any of them. It's like watching someone else's story unfold, a story she once starred in, but now she's reduced to nothing more than a quiet observer. And that's the feeling she hates the most. Being reduced, minimized, feeling irrelevant. She always counted on being significant to you, even when she pushed you away, even when she rejected you. She counted on still being a central figure in your mind. But now, reality has shattered that illusion completely. She thought your affection would be permanent, something she could revisit whenever it suited her. Yet you're quietly showing her that's no longer true. You're demonstrating that your life goes on, with or without her. And right now, it's clearly without her. This hits her differently. It's not anger, not jealousy. It's deeper and far more painful. It's the sense of losing something genuinely valuable, something she once held effortlessly and now can't seem to reclaim. It dawns on her that the one thing she once took for granted, your presence in her life, has faded. And it's this realization that leaves her struggling with the weight of what she's lost. Perhaps she wasn't as irreplaceable as she once believed. Maybe, just maybe, her choice wasn't as simple or as painless as she convinced herself it would be. Now she finds herself trapped, caught between pride and regret. Every update from you feels like salt on an open wound. Seeing you move forward, succeed, and thrive without her shakes her confidence profoundly. She's forced to wonder, was I the one holding him back? Did I underestimate who he was becoming? Could I have had something more meaningful, something real, if I'd made a different choice? These aren't fleeting thoughts. They linger, they dig in, they grow stronger each day she spends on the sidelines. Each moment of silence intensifies her uncertainty. Her inner narrative shifts from believing she was always in control to suddenly feeling completely helpless. Because now the person who once pursued her relentlessly seems utterly indifferent to her existence. And the fact that you're thriving without her, that's the hardest pill to swallow. She assumed you'd always care, always need her validation, always leave space open for her return. But you've subtly and powerfully dismantled that assumption by quietly building a life that doesn't include her. Now she's questioning her decisions, her assumptions, her entire way of interacting with the world. The sense of entitlement she once enjoyed is evaporating quickly. She's being forced to see that maybe she isn't as irreplaceable as she once believed, and maybe, just maybe, you've realized it too. It's that realization, the brutal, undeniable truth, that's forcing her to confront herself in a way she never has before. She realizes she's no longer your priority, and that's a reality she never thought she'd have to face. When she feels like a stranger in your life, it's hitting her harder than ever before. She's becoming a stranger to you. That thought stings deeply, quietly invading her daily routine. She finds herself feeling awkward, even embarrassed, every time she thinks about how confidently she walked away, assuming you'd always be right there, exactly where she left you. But as the days pass, she starts realizing how quickly a bond she took for granted can fade into memory. Suddenly, everything about your world feels unfamiliar to her. The inside jokes you once shared now seem outdated. Mutual friends no longer talk about you around her, as if sensing her discomfort. She realizes you're forming new connections, building memories she's no longer part of, and the distance is growing wider by the day. She can't help but question herself in these quiet moments. Was I just another chapter in his life now completely closed? Does he even remember how good we were together? Have I become someone irrelevant, forgotten in the past? It's a strange sensation, like returning to your hometown after years away, only to find everything's changed without you. She sees your social posts, your updates, even casual glimpses of your interactions with others, and it feels like observing a stranger's life, a life she once knew intimately. The real pain is knowing she caused this herself. This isn't something forced upon her. It's the result of her own actions, her own choices. She was so convinced she'd always matter, always have a space reserved in your heart. But now she's realizing that spot is gradually closed, replaced by new ambitions, new relationships, and new priorities. Suddenly she feels out of place, unwelcome in a world she once believed she owned. It's a sobering reality. The power she thought she held is gone, replaced by an unsettling vulnerability. She's forced to confront a truth that's uncomfortable and humbling. Maybe all along, she overestimated how deeply she influenced your happiness. She underestimated your strength to move forward, and now she's paying the price for her miscalculation. In these quiet, painful moments, she's confronted by the harshest truth of all. She's now just an observer, quietly watching your life unfold without her in it. Now she's trapped in a place she never expected, standing on the outside of your life, desperately peering in through the glass. Each glimpse she gets into your newfound happiness feels like a knife twisting inside her, a constant reminder of what she willingly walked away from. She's no longer just regretting her decision. She's mourning the loss of possibilities, mourning the intimacy she once brushed aside as disposable. Her pride, once her strongest shield, has now become her greatest enemy, keeping her silent while her heart quietly breaks. She scrolls through your pictures, rereads old conversations, and wonders how things went so wrong so fast. She's desperate to reach out, but paralyzed by the fear of what your response, or worse, your silence, would say about her worth. Now she's left with just one truth. The power she thought she held over you has reversed, and it's you who holds the key. You've quietly and confidently shown her that you're fine, that you're thriving, and that you don't need her to feel complete. And that's something she was never ready to accept, because now she sees the reality clearly. Rejecting you wasn't simply rejecting a person. It was rejecting a chance at something meaningful. As she watches you from a distance, she can't help but wonder if she ever truly mattered at all. Right now, she's the one stuck, watching quietly, regretting, and desperately hoping she'll still find a way back into your life. But ultimately, the decision isn't hers anymore. It's yours. If this resonates with you, click the next video on your screen to keep building a mindset that attracts the life and love you deserve.